Before the late 1980s, Liberia stood as a functional, stable anchor in West Africa. It had a growing economy and a predictable administrative flow that drove regional progress. This historical photo shows men harvesting rubber, a snapshot of a time when the country was a massive global exporter of the commodity. Beyond exports, organized community cooperatives maintained self-sustaining food networks that fed the entire nation. This is the entrance gate to the University of Liberia. Institutions like this served as thriving academic hubs, attracting scholars and top minds from all over the African continent. Tying all of this together was a working, centralized civil management system. The government operated with a clear administrative hierarchy, managing reliable public utilities and connected urban to rural transit corridors. Looking at this aerial view of a lush dirt road stretching through the vegetation, you can see the country's most enduring asset, its fertile land. Combined with that history of organized capability, this is the actual blueprint we have to look toward when mapping out the nation's future. In 1989, that stability abruptly shattered. A 14-year civil conflict tore through the region, collapsing the government and plunging the country into chaos. The fighting quickly spilled into the capital. Combatants armed with rifles turned urban centers into active war zones, dismantling the physical infrastructure of the country street by street. The economic toll was catastrophic. Looking at this chart, you can see the gross domestic product plunge by more than 85% between 1989 and 2003. The nation's entire economic engine simply stopped. Along with the economy, the centralized management networks completely dissolved. Trained administrators fled, institutional memory was lost, and the coordinated supply chains broke apart into isolated, unmanaged pockets of survival. For years, the outside world largely ignored the crisis. It took photojournalists like Chris Hondros and Tim Hetherington risking their lives on the front lines to capture the brutal reality and force the international community to pay attention. By the time the fighting stopped in 2003, the concrete buildings and roads were ruined. Yet the most severe casualty was the complete vacuum of leadership and administrative knowledge left in the war's wake. The undeniable photographic evidence of civilian suffering finally spurred the UN Security Council into action in September 2003. They launched the United Nations mission in Liberia, deploying a 16,000-strong peacekeeping force. Their immediate mandate was strict: enforce the newly signed ceasefire, secure humanitarian access, and protect the civilian population. UN troops systematically dismantled the warring factions. You can see a massive stockpile of confiscated rifles and heavy weapons gathered during official disarmament ceremonies. This military presence paved the way for a return to democratic stability. In 2005, the nation held milestone post-war elections, voting in President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and taking the first critical steps toward political healing. The UN successfully stopped the active violence, but military peacekeeping is designed to secure an environment, not to rebuild the complex day-to-day machinery of a functioning economy and civil society. After nearly 15 years, the UN MIL mandate officially closed in 2018. Security and governance responsibilities transferred fully back to the Liberian people. The post-war reality they inherited was daunting, as you can see by these rusted, abandoned ships languishing in the water, still facing fractured physical networks, high logistical barriers, and isolated production centers. An entire generation had grown up without access to classrooms. The physical schools were damaged, and the lack of comprehensive literacy tracking meant young adults were entering the workforce entirely unprepared. The organized supply chains of the agricultural sector had vanished. Without cooperative structures or export routes, rural farmers were forced into basic, isolated survival farming just to feed their own families. Restoring Liberia to its pre-war capabilities demands a completely different approach. It requires transitioning away from emergency military stabilization and moving directly into long-term civilian capacity building. With the emergency phase over, how do international organizations effectively step in to support this critical period of sustainable development? Productive partnership requires a philosophy that uncovers and organizes the deep resilience and agricultural knowledge already present in the Liberian population, rather than imposing foreign solutions. Executing this requires a permanent, hands-on administrative presence on the ground. Financial investments need strict, transparent local management to actually protect the assets and see the development through. A dedicated local management team understands how to navigate government registration, coordinate complex logistics across fractured roads, and most importantly, build ironclad trust directly with the rural communities they serve. To move beyond temporary relief and toward permanent growth, every dollar of international aid must be matched by rigorous, transparent operational oversight executed directly within Liberia's borders. This image shows a medical professional treating a patient, a direct look at the first pillar of reconstruction, healthcare. By establishing life-saving centers in areas like Buchanan, we restore the community's physical baseline, providing the essential foundation for any further development. And here we see children in school uniforms learning at a chalkboard. The second pillar targets education. Ongoing support for primary schools in Saclipia and new construction in Monrovia are actively working to replace the generation lost to the conflict. These new academic hubs push past basic literacy. The curriculum integrates information technology skills, Christian values, leadership training, and entrepreneurship to forge a highly capable future workforce. The final two pillars, agriculture and management, work in tandem. By applying transparent executive oversight to the agricultural sector, we can help local workers organize their native capabilities, transforming isolated survival farming back into robust, self-sustaining community cooperatives. By bridging international funding with fierce local resilience and transparent management, organizations provide Liberians with the structural blueprint to permanently reconstruct their own future.